What we saw in the previous video was the worker's side of the story. By looking at how hard it is to increase effort beyond a certain point, we understood how the firm needs to compensate the worker if it wants the worker to work harder. But the goal of the firm is not necessarily to make the worker work as hard as they can. The firm wants to make the worker work hard and exert more effort, but not at all costs. In fact, what the firm is trying to do is to minimize the costs for a certain level of effort necessary to complete a certain task on the job. And how do firms do that? Well, let's go back to the wage effort space. Before we move on, note an important feature of the model. The firm doesn't care about the working hours of the worker. The working hours are set in the contract, but that's not what really what the firm cares about. The firm cares about the effort that the worker applies during those working hours. The problem is, however, that the effort is inherently hard to observe. You can sit behind your desk and play games half of the time, right? You have fulfilled your contractual obligations. You've sat behind your desk for 8 hours that day. But is this really what the firm wants you to do? Not really. The firm wants you to apply effort because that's really the real production factor that delivers output, not the hours you sit behind your desk. But then the firm has a problem. It's good to have workers who work hard all the time, but because they become increasingly tired as they work more, you don't want to spend a fortune on this extra effort, do you? So your goal becomes the following: how to minimize the costs that you pay per unit of effort. You do that by looking at the ISO cost lines for effort, those lines at which the cost per unit of effort is the same. So let's take an effort level of 0.45. This means the worker works at their potential 45% of the time. Let's say it costs the firm $10 per hour to keep the worker at this level of effort. But there are a bunch of points with exactly the same trade-off between effort and costs. For example, a level of effort of 0.9 would cost $20. And then the cost per unit of effort on that line is exactly the same. We call these lines that elicit the same costs per unit of effort and the same effort per dollar of compensation the ISO cost lines for effort. In this line in particular, we have an effort of 0.045 for each dollar of compensation. But notice that there are many ISO cost lines for effort. Let's see their properties. Take, for example, a wage of 10. Let's focus on an ISO cost sitting to the right of our original ISO cost. An effort ISO cost that sits to the right means that for a wage of 10, the firm is able to extract lower effort from the worker. Notice also that this is valid not only for a wage of 10, this is valid for all possible wages. So, as the firm is able to get a lower effort at all wages, then we can say that it becomes increasingly hard for the firm to extract the same level of effort as before. And as a result, we conclude that the effort ISO cost sitting to the right of the old one will mean more costs for the same effort for the firm, and will therefore represent higher cost of effort. On the other hand, effort ISO costs to the left of our old ISO cost means exactly the opposite. Each unit of effort is less expensive to extract from the worker for those effort ISO costs sitting to the left of our original one. In other words, if the firm is able to get to the leftmost isocost line for effort, it saves money. And again, this is because for each dollar of compensation, the firm gets more effort from the worker. But then, see what happens here. The slope of these effort isocost lines is actually a marginal rate of substitution. It's the rate at which the firm pays for an extra unit of effort and keeps its costs per unit of effort the same. That's why we can say that as long as the firm pays the same money for a unit of effort, as long as it substitutes effort and money at the same rate, the firm is indifferent. For example, the firm is indifferent between point A and any other point on the same isocost line for effort. And further, the firm is indifferent between point B and another point on the same isocost line for effort. However, the firm is not indifferent between point A and point B. The firm strictly prefers point B, because at point B, the compensation it pays for the extra effort is lower than at point A. And that's the key to understanding equilibrium in this model. We'll discuss equilibrium in the next video. The equilibrium in the labor discipline model will tell us how firms minimize costs per unit of effort, which makes the firms happy, and at the same time how they are paying workers a wage which they perceive fair for the effort they apply. So keep watching to arrive at equilibrium.